Okay. Here we are. Seems slightly bright. How's this? That seems good. Okay. And indeed. This is working. I assume. It's probably insane to is there any, oh, there's 10 people in here. Okay. How does the audio sound so far? Obviously, okay. Screen persona activate. How's the audio sounding so far? I'm testing out this lav wireless mic because I know my stringing machine is loud and so hear that pull before I was using my boom mic, and that would be kind of disruptive to my voice. So hopefully that's a little bit quieter now. Okay, so there's some slight feedback. There shouldn't be feedback because I'm not listening to any replays of my voice. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Nicholas, and hi to Victor. So I did just put out a video less than an hour ago, but I have emails I need to answer and I don't want to answer them right now. So I will procrastinate doing emails by live streaming. So I've been loosely looking for a new racket, and I would say right now my top two contenders are the TFIGHT 305S and the FX500 that will come out either by the end of this year or for Q1 next year. Okay, so Brian is getting a high-pitched tone. Is anyone else getting a high-pitched kind of background frequency noise? Oh, better now. Okay, might just be the connection in that case. I need to get a better cable to connect from my computer to the camera so that I can get higher quality stream going. Okay, and so I'm gonna string this bad boy up for a hit later. Looks kind of windy and cold out, so hopefully it doesn't get too bad by the time I hit. Oh, I'm supposed to reply to my hitting partner. Okay, so does anybody have any questions of any kind that I could answer? Because that's my favorite part of doing these live streams. It gets a little bit tricky when I'm replying to the comments in the videos because we can't really have a conversation. I just miss the notification. So this is kind of my preferred way of doing things. Okay, back to this. Okay, I do see I'm going to have to increase this font size because I simply cannot see it. Oh yeah. Okay. Yes, this is the FX500 blacked out. It'll come out next year. My thoughts on the VCore 100 from Yonex. Liked it a lot. Honestly, have not hit it since I reviewed that racket when it came out in 2023. So it's not super fresh in my mind. Going back and hitting the VCore 98, which I remember from when I did the review, that one felt more connected than the 100. But hitting that these days, I'm feeling like it's kind of muted and disconnected when I hit it in the summer in preparation for the Onyx Pro Stock video. And so that would probably be my main issue with the VCore 100 were I to revisit it. I am expecting new VCores for the Australian Open, so we'll see. Seems like they're probably going to have Minilon, so might be even more muted than the previous VCores, which is definitely not what I'm looking for, but I assume you need something comfortable, which is why you asked also about the best multi-filament string. So when it comes to like a value multi-filament, I think Head Velocity is pretty solid. Usually that's pretty affordable. The black color has a super slick wrapping, but in general, even for intermediate and sometimes even for beginner players, I'm just not finding myself recommending nylon as much. I think if you want to learn tennis and actively improve, you have to learn topspin, and it can be not very rewarding to learn spin with nylons. Basically, as soon as you start hitting spin, the string bed will lock up, and then you just can't produce a heavy ball. So I've been recommending very soft polys at lower tensions more and more. And even if you want something like an all-in-one hybrid, Headlinks Touch, so that's an elastomer string with a polyester wrapping. I need to redo my intermediate string recommendations because before I was really kind of like beating the dead horse about, you need to use nylon if you're not breaking poly. And at this point, the way that I'm seeing people learn tennis, where there's so many resources online, it's just not feeling as relevant to modern game. Okay, locking in my hit for 5 o'clock. All right, another question. Question about my Instapost and the K-Swiss Speed Rublo. Is Foot Doctor Zach review out somewhere? No, I've been having shoe issues. I wore the New Balance CT Rally forever. And then whatever it's going on with the New Balance distribution in Canada, that shoe became not available. You can't really get the CT Rally 2 in men's. They have like only women's right now. And it seems like they've changed the fit of the CT Rally 2, and the lockdown maybe isn't as good. So I'm a little bit scared to try that. So I asked Zach if I should get the Rublo, because I got confused between the Hyper Pinnacle or the Pinnacle Court or something and the Rublev shoe. So he just said he would order them or like get them and do a review and then tell me if I should buy them. All right. What strings go well with the Head Speed Legend 2025? Honestly, this is probably a crazy thing to say, but my favorite string setup for that racket was RPM Blast. I would never have tried it, but Luca strung it with RPM Blast one day, so I just hit it. It was even kind of worn, and that was the best for me. I really don't like the auxetic feel. I played pretty solid tennis with the Speed MT, to be honest. Like, it's a very well-rounded frame. But the feel is just so off-putting to me that I want something like stiff and boardy, so I don't have to like experience the suction cupping auxetic squishy feel in the sweet spot. So basically, I would just recommend, if you like a firmer, more responsive feel, just go with like the stiffest poly possible, because that racket is like relatively comfortable because of that auxetic implementation anyway. Keeping the racket around for a while though, because it's just too useful for comparing to other frames. All right. What are my thoughts on going to a thinner poly rather than a softer one? It depends what you're looking for. I also do recommend very thin polys as entry levels into the polyester game, I suppose. So Solinco is one that I'll typically recommend, like Mach 10 18 gauge. That's a relatively soft poly, but also super playable, long-lasting snapback. So that is good. And Simon needs me to string this, so I will string it for him. And he's got to try a string right now. No, I have stringing I need to do, but I have prototype strings that I'm not supposed to show. What string? No, I need to, do I take all the weight out of the handle? We're gonna see if I took all the weight out of the handle of this TFIGHT because it felt a bit handle heavy. I really don't think, I get a lot of questions about customizing the TFIGHT and I really don't think you should. Even this like Syntec Pro, because I like, you know, the leather grip feel, but the leather grip is just too heavy. The Syntec Pro feels like it added weight compared to the stock Technofiber grip. Yeah, I have no weight added in the handle. Okay. Oh, Peter Tran member, digging the Blackout V2 in stock form, but getting some elbow soreness from Mach 10 HGR. What should you go for with good ball bite and power? Well, you could just go for a full Mach 10. I mean, I found personally that HGR actually locks up a decent amount. Like, it's not the slickest round poly. There are polys that facilitate much longer lasting snapback than Hyper G round. Hyper G round is like super good for high swing speeds and is very stable on ball contact and has a lot of like redeeming factors, right? But long lasting snapback isn't one of them, and lack of snapback is something that can cause arm soreness in a couple of different ways. One, you're not getting the snapback you expect, so you have to swing a little bit harder and to produce the spin that you are used to. So you're overdoing that kind of motion. That's one thing. And then number two is you're just going to be getting more shock transmitted when the strings aren't gliding against each other. So if those strings have been in your racket for like a while and you feel like they could be locking up a little bit quick, that's something I would think about. Maybe just going for a full bed of Mach 10. I thought a full bed of Mach 10 in the Blackout was not super easy to control. And so my ultimate preferred setup ended up being the highly predictable Otoro, like normal Otoro width. And I thought I had some white fin. Oh, there it is. Otoro green in the main sink and the crosses. You could probably just go full Otoro green to get a little bit softer response, or Otoro snap I find to be noticeably softer than Otoro. So putting Otoro snap in the cross would also probably take a little bit of heat out. You could even just do that with leaving Mach 10 in the mains if you're feeling dialed in with Mach 10 in the mains, but you want like a softer, long-lasting snapback cross. Okay. Is there news between me and Nordic Dots? No, there is not news between me and Nordic Dots. I do like controversial questions, though. Yeah, last thing that happened was maybe a month after that video came out, they apologized for the miscommunication, which I think personally is a bit of a cop-out, because it's not that there was a miscommunication, in my opinion. And so I didn't really feel like the apology was genuine. And so I just said, we're not I just said, okay, whatever. That's fine. I'm not gonna like hold a nasty grudge and hate you forever, but I'm also not gonna go out of my way to like bring more views to your products. And they haven't reached out to me asking for any reviews since, and I haven't asked to review any of their stuff because last time I did that, it turned out badly. And I don't want to be someone who makes the same mistake twice. So they came to me with clearer terms. That'd be something that like maybe we could look at improving, but that hasn't happened. I'm going to string this at like 40 pounds because it's getting cold. All right. Clarence, which racket do I like better, the whiteout or the 305S? I like the 305S better, though it's been a while since I hit a lightweight whiteout V1, but I just feel like the general power of the 305S is better. Oh, you know what we're going to do? I've been wanting to try this for a while. Dreddy. We're throwing Dreddy in the 305S at 40 pounds. Half the tension that Dustin would do it, but you know. All right. Brandon K. You have a master string chart list that breaks. No, okay. Brandon K wants to know if I have a master string list or chart that breaks down strings by type or characteristics, like soft, stiff, blah, blah, blah. The answer is no, I do not. And that's because I'm too lazy. I have a list of all the strings I've tried, which I made a while ago, and I update every time I do a tier list, and it's like very long. I've cut some discontinued strings off that list, but at one point it was certainly over 100. It's just like challenging to make master lists. And if you've ever tried to make a master list, you realize that like all these playability characteristics overlap in different ways. And then it either becomes excessively verbose or insufficiently thorough. So they're a little bit tricky. You can even see like Tennis Warehouse, who have like full staff dedicated to master lists, I suppose. They struggle to keep things updated, and they have arguably more resources than anybody in the world when it comes to that kind of thing. Okay, I'm getting behind on these comments. Tamagon Bagel. I saw my Talk Tennis post about the Fury Arma 101. Any thoughts on how it compares to the stacked section of the market? Okay, yeah. Great question. I want to talk about the Fury. Okay, so the Fury is a 101, so in some ways it has very little competitors, like if you were just to chalk it up to head size. But I would say it competes more closely to like the Speed MP than it would to like an Aero 100 or a Pure Drive or like any of the thick elliptical beam 100 square inch rackets. The reason for that is that segment Speed MP, Persa 100, Strike 100 is more where you're going to get either a flat beam or a box beam construction. So meaning the beam width is continuous throughout the section. So a lot of rackets will be thinner in the throat, thickest at 3 and 9, thinner in the tip. A lot of the like medium 100s are flat beam, the same throughout, or they have like a literally flat edge, which is what you might call a box beam. So the Fury has that. Right, I believe it is a flat box beam, but it's very thick, especially in the throat and especially this direction. So you do get quite a bit of power. And the reason there aren't a ton of flat box beams is because they're low power, low stability. And I pretty much haven't seen anyone do a flat box beam that thick ever. So the power levels, the inherent forgiveness levels, I think, are ahead of something like the Speed MP, but they're certainly not close to the Fear Drive. But the feel is something that's quite unique, and I got to spend some time with those rackets and review them properly. I think the company has good people behind it, so I want to do a piece that accurately reflects my respect for the company. But I also need to figure out how to get it views, right? Because if I just do Fury Arma Pro review, it's going to do horrible. Less people are thinking about that racket than the Diadem Axis. My Diadem Axis video didn't do well at all. My favorite videos are when my personal interests line up well with your interests. So I can have a lot of fun making the video, and you guys like watching it, and a lot of you like watching it. Okay. There was an interesting question that I need to go back to check. King Club. It was a King's Club question. Oh, yeah. Okay, King's Club. We got to get your thoughts on the social media coach tennis god controversy. So I don't know the whole situation of the controversy, but I like tennis god Julius. He is my homie. He's funny. He can take a joke. There are a lot of people that he enrages, and I think that is valuable. Do I think everything he says is correct? No. But do I think, do I appreciate his alternative thought when compared to mainstream tennis coaches? 100%. I find it says a lot more about coaches like Sasha Bijan, who want to have a fight with some guy who has like the world, like Tennis God. I think if he were to play a league, would be like in the 4.0 league. I think technically he's got a lot of shots, but his mobility is so bad that he would get eaten up in 4.5. So I don't understand how a guy, Sasha Bijan, who's like a world-class hitting partner, coach of Naomi Osaka, worked with Serena Williams, how is this guy getting so mad at a 4.0? It's just insane to me. So the big pro coaches, I don't know why they're giving Julius attention, unless he was saying something that was in some way true to them. And it's like the same way you wouldn't see, like you don't see people go argue with homeless people holding up signs that Jesus is coming back and the apocalypse is coming next week. Like arguing, like why would you argue with that person? It's the same thing. Like I don't think Julius is that like crazy of a person. I don't think he's like deeply mentally ill or anything. But it just seems like these are people on two very different levels. And why would the higher one, so-called, who thinks he's better, stoop down to the lower one unless there was some truth being spoken? And then with Coach Vault or whatever, I blocked him because, like, to me, it's disgusting to run a social media account that's exclusively there to hate basically on one person. That Coach Vault dude only got any traction when he criticized Julian, turned his entire coaching channel into criticizing very specific out of context things that Tennis God posted, and then started doing weird stuff like renting cars and taking photos pretending they were his or something. That was weird. Whereas Tennis God, I think, is genuine. Like he legitimately wants to like positively contribute to tennis and make learning tennis more accessible for more people. There's been things that he said that I have kind of implemented in my game to try to simplify things down, and successfully. There's also things he says that I think is a deep oversimplification of what's going on and underestimates or misrepresents how challenging tennis is. Okay. So I imagine I have many things to. Did they send you the new Arrow prototype? No, they did not. Okay, I'm caught up on that. Okay, next member. Thanks for being a member. We're at an all-time high with members, by the way, so thank you very much to everyone who has joined. Johnny asks, Speed MP Legend 2025 versus Blackout V2 Power Spin Directional Control, etc. The Speed MP and the Blackout differ on paper in a lot of ways. Like, I don't think they necessarily compete against each other when you look at the beam thicknesses being so different, the swing weights being so different, the speed is such a higher swing weight. But then when you actually play with them, they feel like they compete better against each other. They're both rackets that are 100 square inches, relatively open patterns, easy to get depth, higher launch angles, but also rackets that you really have to go after to get the most out of them. The Speed MP especially, I think, has become a harder and harder racket to use when it comes to the requirements for swing speed. So I see a ton of intermediate players using the Speed MP because it's a great all-arounder. I also think there are much better rackets out there that are more forgiving if you have a lower swing speed. So both the Speed MP and the Blackout share this thing where you really got to go after it. I think I do probably play better with the Speed MP. I think if you can get the swing speeds the same for a given swing speed, I think it's easier to take high swing weight with the speed. I think because the balance point's a bit higher. So I find myself generally hitting a heavier ball with the speed. I can play a little bit crazier shots with the speed. Honestly, if I had to go into a tournament, I'd probably choose the speed. But I just don't enjoy it because the feel is so exotic-y. Like, huge, more dwell time with the speed, maybe more comfort with the Blackout. Inputs with the Blackout feel more one-to-one, like it feels more like a normal racket, whereas the speed still feels kind of like fake in a lot of ways, which is obviously what I don't like about the head frames. I don't know. Was that even like close to answering your question? Oh, directional control. Probably a speed I could change direction better with. I could produce a heavier ball with more spin, probably, but it was less pleasurable. Greetings, 2 in a row from Germany. Greetings right back at you. Okay, is the Pure Arrow team a good racket for beginners? Great choice. Nothing wrong with it. If you're a relatively strong or athletic adult, I think it'd be fine to just go with the Arrow 100 if you want the Arrow. It won't take you very long if you are actively trying to get better and you're loving tennis for you to start feeling the cons of the lower weight. I was watching a Tennis Warehouse podcast recently where my friend Munish was saying he thinks racket weights are going to continue to reduce at the pro level. And I don't think that's true. Like, I don't think we're ever going to see a majority of players using like 285 gram rackets. I don't think pros will be able to swing those rackets much faster. I think we've kind of hit the bottom end. And the only reason that we are using rackets that are so light successfully at the pro level, I think, is because the balls slow down so much. So you don't need as much inertia to redirect pace. Okay, do I have more than one TFIGHT? No, I don't. Honestly, I'm gonna complain. This is a huge first world problem specific to me and a handful of other people. So Technofiber, send me some dampeners, the special edition dampeners. And then they said, they hinted that I would get the blue racket, and then I didn't get the blue racket, and I don't really feel like following up because I don't like going, hey, you sent me this, you need to send me something else. Like, that just seems entitled. And it's equally entitled to complain about it on a live stream. And if I end up switching to this racket, then I'll ask for more. Because I don't need another racket, as you can see. But it was just kind of weird. Okay. Is Grapple Snake Tour Mako Silver a good choice for the TFIGHT? That's one of my favorite choices for the TFIGHT. I would like my reel from Grapple Snake to arrive already so I could use that exclusively in the TFIGHT. I think it would be nice if there was a little more lift, like with Tour Mako for my personal game, but if you like to strike through the ball, which I think is probably what you should be doing with the TFIGHT, then Mako's epic. It gives you like a gut-like level of ball pocketing, adds some comfort to this frame. The silver and the teal are not super different. I think you really would have to hit them back to back. So same racket, spec the same tension on the same day. You hit silver, put it down, you hit teal. I think you would really have to do that to notice the difference. For me, hitting them, hit silver one day, the next week hit teal, I'm not really noticing. And I think probably part of that is because Mako is such an extreme compared to the rest of the market that the nuances are hidden behind the large-scale, unique playability. All right. Rafael Dutra, thank you for being a member, Rafa. Speed MP 2.0 versus High Bar, which are different? Worth changing. Probably not worth changing. Yes, pretty different. I thought the firmness of the face with the High Bar added a lot of improved directional control to the racket. I think that firmness also made the racket feel a little bit more responsive and connected. Like that, you still get the auxetic feel. Don't like that. But no. At the end of the day, the specs are pretty much the same. The mold is the same. It's just if you want to try something new. If you liked last year's, you'll like this year's. If you didn't like last year's, you might appreciate this year's a little more, but you're probably not gonna want to switch to it. I don't think it's worth spending the money on, unless that money is burning a hole in your pocket. Then do what you want. All right, X-Gym class member, thank you. Something TennCom related. What happened to the? Great question. What happened to the arguably slightly overambitious weekly podcast idea? There were videos with me and Simon. So Simon is in charge of all podcasts. So if you're upset that there's no weekly podcast, it's his fault. If you are upset that the color grading on the video sucks on the podcast, it's Simon's fault. But yeah, I'll let him know that you're thinking about the podcast and try to get that back up and running. He's got a full-time job, so unlike me, who basically just makes 3 videos a month. So he gets a little bit busy, and then his dog takes up a lot of time. She's kind of crazy. She was a rescue. But I'll tell him you're thinking about it. All right. Am I going to sell Tour Mako reels in my store? I can bring some in. Once Canada Post opens up, I got to order some more strings from all the brands. So I'll bring in a reel of Mako. Do you want teal or silver? I think teal is better just because the color is more unique. Did I try the Pure Aero 2026? Big in Smash wants to know. As you can see by my delayed reaction, I clearly did. But I didn't try the standard length. I only tried the 100 square inch extra long. And I should probably not really talk about it, even though I didn't get the racket directly from Bablat, and I haven't signed anything or anything. I just don't want to put anybody who wasn't supposed to share the racket in a bad position. But I will say I will likely put off switching to a new racket until those are released and I can get an extended test with one. They are, I would say the update is significant. Okay, yeah, I'll bring in a real silver Mako for you. Calvin, thanks for being a member also. Do I have any recommendations for a poly that holds tension better? Nicholas Abrams asks. I guess better than what is my question, but here's my second point. I don't think tension maintenance is that important. I'm in the camp that believes snapback lasting a long time is more useful to the average player, and so I will explain. Tension usually doesn't drop suddenly. It might drop more suddenly, like in your first hour of play, you'll feel it go down, but after the initial drop with almost all polys, it will hold quite steady. So basically, once you're through the initial tension drop, you don't really have to worry about it. So that's positive. It's basically just one adjustment you have to make. And then the second thing is, as the tension drops, I find it not that hard to make adjustments because lower tensions really just shoot the ball higher. They don't really shoot the ball faster, forward more. It's just higher, and that's why it's easier to get depth. And so if you just aim up a little bit lower, it's pretty easy to combat the tension loss with your own personal adjustments. And then so you just know that you have to hit every shot in your arsenal slightly lower. Not a big deal in my opinion. But if you have snapback loss, then I think it's a little bit harder because every ball you hit is going to notch the string slightly more, which increases the friction between the mains and the crosses, which means that you have this moving goalpost on how easy it is to access spin. Basically, the more friction you have between your strings, the harder it is to generate spin. And so for me, I mainly look for the tension holding has to be decent. Like it can't be like dropping off a cliff bad, like something like Turner Premium Poly, for example. But as long as the snapback lasts a long time and you don't get quick notching, you're basically just looking for slippery strings. I find that's the best for long-term playability duration. Okay. As someone who is changing rackets, would you buy a pure arrow right now or wait for the release? I would say it depends on your price sensitivity. If you like the pure arrow right now, I probably wouldn't wait for the new one because okay, let's go back to the price thing. Everything in the world is increasing in price pretty rapidly. Rackets are no exception. There are many reasons for this, but a lot of them have to do with the US government. That has impacted rackets significantly in the last year. That combined with tennis costs increasing since COVID means that we've basically seen a 50% increase in racket prices in the last 5 years, which is pretty crazy. And I would expect Bablat being, I think, in general, very high quality rackets that are also priced higher. I wouldn't be surprised if these are like 300 over the 350. How much is our Bablats right now, tennis wear? Let's find tennis. Oh no, I can use my book. Okay, so the Pure Drive came out at the beginning of the year at it's now at $289. The Pure Drive 98 is $299. That's pretty expensive. The Pure Aero 90, it's also $299. I think those are post-tariff price increases as well. But then the Pure Aero Rafa Origin was like more than that, I think, as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if like we're seeing these at like $320 on release, if not more, because I'm pretty sure there's pretty significant R&D for this Pure Aero. So they're going to be wanting to recuperate their costs on the development for this. So if you're not price sensitive, yeah, okay, maybe wait and see what's coming out. If you are price sensitive, you know you like the Aero, just get it. Especially like, I think Tennis Warehouse either still has or just had like their big 1 year sale. Then there's going to be Black Friday stuff coming up. You know you like your current one, might as well go for it. That's kind of how I feel. Okay, I think you've asked this a couple times, Aiden and Victor, so I want to get to it. What is the best 100 square inch head racket? Okay, so let's look at what they've got. So I think maybe this is not the answer you're looking for. I think it's probably the Gravity Pro, just from like when you say what's best, I'm looking at, okay, how did the various 100s compete with the rest of the market segment? And for me, the one that stands out compared to the market is the Gravity Pro. There are very few control rackets in the 100 square inch class. There are very few control rackets remaining that feel very good and organic, and Gravity Pro does those things. Pause. So to me, that makes the Gravity Pro the best 100 square inch head racket. But if you're asking what is like the best power, more like forgiving, what is head's best forgiving racket, which is what a lot of people mean when they're thinking about 100 square inches, you're looking at, I guess, the Gravity MP, the Speed MP, the Extreme MP, which I haven't tried, the newest one, the Boom MP. And I think all of those fall a little bit short to the competition, except maybe the Speed. I can see reasons to choose the Speed, even though I don't personally like the feel. So maybe it's the Speed MP. I think the Gravity MP sucks. I'm not going to review it. It's just like way too bendy in the hoop. Really hard to develop power. Disconnected feel. The Boom MP is good, but I think it's not appealing to the correct demographic of player. Like, and honestly, it's similar to the RF01 Pro in that, like, you kind of need to hit it in the sweet spot or else you get a little bit of an erratic response. And usually that's not what you're looking for when you go for a power racket. So if you're looking for a 100 square inch forgiving racket, I would buy Pure Drive. I would look at the Uno 100. Look at the Pure Aero 100 if you want something a little bit beefier. There's just a lot of other ways you can go. If you want something more control-oriented, I would rather play with the Persup 100 than the Speed MP. Okay. Rafa, Dutra. Again, for the players using the Aero 98 and thinking the racket is a little bit too clumsy, what options do they have? I suppose you want something that has a little bit less weight in the hoop. Diadem Axis is a little bit whippier. The Extreme Pro is whippier, but it's going to have less forgiveness. Basically, when you take away head weight, you're going to be losing a lot of forgiveness because you have less weight in the head to redirect the balls, the incoming ball's force. What else? The Blackout. Maybe the Blackout is the best solution. It's a little bit whippier, less weight in the head, lower swing weight, still pretty stable, still has the same kind of like you got to go for your shot to play well. Okay, just tuned in. Sleepy Shot. What are my thoughts on the SX300 Tour? Do I think making it heavier but headlight is alright given the already stable feeling? So Simon Simon's racket of choice is the FX500 Tour. Every time I hit it, which I hit it relatively frequently because I can do string testing, and so I want to try the strings he tests in that racket because I think the more rackets you can try and string in, the more information you get about it. And every time I hit it, I'm like, ah, this is a good racket. For his, we got the swing weight up to 293 unstrung, so like what Alcaraz is at on his. And then let me just double check my notes, actually. I need some water, so I'm going to get some water in while I check my notes. Okay, so yeah, unstrung, Simon is at 310 grams. So a little bit of weight has been added to the tip of the racket to get the swing weight up. And then that results in a balance point of 32 centimeters. So 310 gram static, 32 centimeter balance point, 398 swing weight. So he's actually got a slightly higher swing weight than I thought he was at before. But that to me is like a solid all-around spec, easy to get racket head speed because the static weight's not super high. Still good plow through. That's generally where I like that frame. A lot of the SX300 Tours can come like way low swing weight, like 285 unstrung, which in those cases, I think adding handle weight, you're going to end up with a relatively ineffective shot, to be honest. Depends your level as well. But yeah, for us, it has always been head weight that worked with the SX. Okay. Okay, Sleepy Shot got a comment on the Slinka weighted butt caps fitting the Dunlops. Yes, I found that to be true, but they don't sit flush, like they protrude a little bit for us. So it's not a one-to-one fit, but it can be useful. I think Simon had one fall out. Hi, Luca. Luca's in the chat. Everyone bother him. Okay, yes, I knew I was missing one. Alex Perea maybe. Hi, Beckett, not racket related, but what do I do for a living? I do this. I do live streams in the middle of the day because I don't want to reply to emails. I used to work in insurance, but that was horrible. And so I've been just doing this for a while. I'm not rich, as you can tell by my low-rise cramped apartment. But it's enough to pay the bills and it's fun. And I've been overall much healthier since I stopped working in insurance, mentally, physically, all this stuff. TennCom gives me a combination of paying me enough to live my life while being very fulfilling. Because creatively fulfilling, making the videos, socially fulfilling because I have a lot of friends in tennis, also fulfilling to be of somewhat use to random strangers on the internet. Okay. Next one. Yeah, I think Luca does sub to me, or maybe he didn't. But some people have like their subs turned off. When do you get to see my documentary? Peter Tran asks. It is going well. So I put it off for a while because I didn't exactly know what to do once I had all my footage. Because I'm also sort of in charge of like putting it all together for the client, which is hard, and I feel a lot of pressure to do a good job because filming this documentary was one of the greatest experiences of my entire life and incredibly unique. So I'm feeling a lot of pressure and I really want to do my best, so I'm taking my time on it. So this week I want to have another draft done because I'm really figuring out how to piece this, like all of this content together to tell the story in the right way, which is not easy. Because with like indigenous storytelling, a lot of it can be quite circular, not necessarily purely linear. So this is not going to be like a linear documentary, which is more complex than anything that I do for TennCom. Okay. Budget shoe recommendations, man, I don't know. I'm in a horrible shoe situation right now. I was using the CT Rallies, can't get them anymore in Canada, can't get the V2s yet. So I got Vapor 12s, they didn't last long. Like the durability is not, of the outsole's not what bothered me, but like there's so much compression of the foam in the forefoot that after 6 weeks, I was just having full body pain from them. So then I'm like, okay. I asked Oak from Tennis Warehouse because he loves the Vapor Pro 3. Is the Vapor Pro 3 a little bit more comfortable or have more forefoot cushion? He's like, yeah, way more. I was like, okay, it does have way more, but it doesn't have the airbag, the zoom bag, and the heel, which is aggravating my knees, which could also be due to dropping temps. But now I just have like rough lower back pain, which I thought I had gotten rid of earlier this year when I started getting my hip flexors stronger. So maybe it's time for some core working out as well. God, I hate working out though. Okay, interesting question by Guzzy. Is there a better or worse balance point for a two-handed backhand? There is a better or worse balance point for your two-handed backhand. Same as one-handed backhands. I personally generally prefer a little bit more head. Actually, I don't even know. Like, I just like more head weight on my two-handed backhand. To me, it's a little bit less sensitive to balance because there's just less movement through the stroke. Like, you're not, with the forehand, the tip comes up high, you drop it in the slot. There's a lot of different movements that you do with your arm. But on the two-handed backhand, you kind of just take it back and swing through it. You don't have, there is some wrist leg for sure, but it's way less consequential. And so I'm a little bit less sensitive to, I'm frankly not that sensitive to balance point on my two-hander. On my forehand, 100%, I can feel the balance big time. But on the two-hander, basically, I just want there to be enough head weight that I can generate power, and that's all that matters. Okay. When do I think the new Pure Aero will come out? Q1 2025 for the Australian Open. All right, Tamagon Bagel, one of my favorite members because he comments all the time. And you say insightful things. Switching question. How am I evaluating the TFIGHT and FX500? I'd be amazed if they help you play the same kind of game. The FX500 seems to fit more what I like. And why did I eliminate the blackout? Let's talk about the blackout. I eliminated the blackout because I could not get the weight and balance to feel easy with my forehand swing. I would start a set playing great, but no matter what happened, I would end the set playing bad and want to use something else. So I was just not finding the love. That's just the standard length. I need to cut down the XL because the XL feels a little bit better to me. Like hitting feels also more connected, so I can more easily evaluate what's going on with my game. With that one, but I just haven't gotten around to it because I have a bunch of projects. I have way too many projects going on. I really should not have done this live stream and procrastinated replying to emails. Okay, so believe it or not, the FX500 and the TFIGHT lead to me playing almost the exact same style of tennis. The FX500 has an insanely low launch angle. Like both rackets, I really have to consciously work to add spin to my shot. It's not like when I normally hit with them that I don't hit with spin, but it's a much flatter, lower ball trajectory. And so I do play very, very similar games with them. When I review my hitting footage with the TFIGHT, I really, really like the tennis I play with that. So that is one of the reasons that it has been in contention for me. I've worked on a few customizations on the TFIGHT that didn't quite work that well. Mainly, if I'm adding any weight to the handle, it sucks. So I gotta keep the weight out of the handle as much as possible. And I got swing weight at 330. Both the TFIGHT and the Blackout, I have better backhands than almost any other racket. I have incredible returns. I think I serve better with the TFIGHT. I think I defend better with the 500. I'm talking about 500 here. I might have said Blackout in the last sentence, but I mean the 500. It's hard because it's blacked out. But yeah, so how am I ultimately going to decide what I do? Just got to trust my gut. And then I'll probably make a video explaining what that actually means. But for me, it's like, do you play the tennis you want? Honestly, going with my intuition is a huge use for me. Like, if I bring both rackets and I look in my bag and I just go, what do I want to use? That basically tells you all you need to know. And that's the reason why I switched to the Rafa. Like, when I switched to the Rafa, I wasn't looking to switch. It was just one that came through because I asked Babolat if I could get a Rafa or an Origin to make a special video for Rafa's retirement, which I did. Not really for Rafa's retirement, but that was the Blade Runner Arrow movie or video. And basically it just stayed in my bag because I had so much fun using it. And I just stopped thinking about my whiteouts. I didn't want to use my whiteouts anymore. And so lately I haven't really been wanting to pick up my Arrow that much. I've been wanting to pick up the FX500. And so I'll probably end up doing that. And so I'm eagerly awaiting the release of that frame. Okay. Side hill. A little bit lost. My mouse is in the way. A little bit of a lost bug catching up in the tennis world, but wondering what's good racket to pick for a returning semi-pro. You last played with the 280 GS. I'm assuming head. I don't know, man. Since I don't actually know what 280 GS means, if you could just clarify with that, I'll try to circle back. Next question, Kings Club. What level should players start considering pro stocks as an option? You never need a pro stock. You should only buy a pro stock if you're curious about pro stock, you like collecting frames. I would never ever, like, let's say there's players at infinite levels getting racket consultations from me. I would never go, you need to get a pro stock. They're like, I think some of them can be objectively better. Like, I have a theory that they're made of higher modulus graphite based on the one that I hit, the Onyx ones I hit. I have some other information that backs that up as well, but I said I wouldn't say what that information is. But then there are some companies like Diadem, for example, who does not do pro stocks. Like Svitolina is using an off-the-shelf retail Axis 98. Bublik was using retail off-the-shelf arrows. He got them heavily customized with, like, I think, a new handle. Tsitsipas, I think, had a retail arrow as well when he won Dubai. Like, you don't need a pro stock. I don't think you should ever think a pro stock is right for you in a way that's, like, better than a retail. A pro stock is, you should start considering pro stocks when a company, you're good enough that a company gives them to you for free. That's, I guess, the answer. Okay. Member questions. Oh, no. You meant a 280 gram racket? Man, like, I wouldn't recommend a 280 gram racket for a semi-pro. I just, like, everyone has their own thing. but I would not recommend a 280 gram. If you need something super light, I don't know why you would need something that light. But I guess if you needed something light, depends on your levels of control. Like, I don't know, it's just not enough information for me to be of significant use. Okay. X gym class. Notice we were talking about rising prices of rackets and a steep incline in prices. Grapple Snake's Aspera is $220. Toraline's reels are now going for $200, and those are mini reels, by the way. And Sync was just increased by $10. All of these options are now more costly than a reel of Alu Power. Well, in Canada, a reel of Alu Power is like over $400. So I don't exactly know, but I got some sort of notification about gestures. I don't want any gestures. Aspera is expensive because there's a huge amount of Aspera is expensive because it's a very complex string to manufacture. So that's that one. It is got the abrasive surface, so the sandpapery coating, which is already very expensive, one of the most expensive string processes on the market. And then it's also rough, which adds to the cost. Like basically across the board, rough strings are more expensive. Not necessarily than their counterparts, but they'll be priced more aggressively. Maybe that's a generalization. Don't take that to heart. So there's a lot that went into Aspera, and it's a very unique string. So I think you can feel that it plays quite differently. And so to me, it doesn't feel like a ripoff, though I do think it is very expensive. I agree. So that's that one. When we're talking about, moderate price increases, that's just tariffs. Like, what I've noticed is, and this is unfortunate, the US market is huge, and it's one of the most consumer-based markets in the world, if not the most consumer-based market in the world. And so many companies don't sell only in the US. So we see, even though tariffs are pretty much only happening seriously from other countries into the US, the way that the companies are dealing with the increased costs due to the tariffs is that we're getting global price increases, which, and I hate to say it, is sort of what Trump was saying when he said other countries would pay for the tariffs. Americans are paying for the tariffs too, obviously, but the way that a lot of companies are handling this, we're seeing just global price increases on goods, which means that in some ways other countries are paying for the tariffs, which sucks. And everything is increasing in price, and I think things are going to continue to increase in price in the short to medium term, at least until we see some more stable government in the United States. I know you don't come for market reports, but TennCom does market reports. Okay. Jaminator asks, is the Regna like Pro Stock based on the field? Good question. Answer is yes. Okay, Tamagon Bagel again. Final, I'm getting water again. BRB. Okay. Now I'm going to answer Tamagon's question, but I'm not streaming again. I'm going to try to get some weight out of the bumper of this FX because I put too much under the bumper. I was a bit hasty with this bumper. So I'm going to adjust the camera and then sit. Okay, gotta go back. Where's old Tamagon Bagel's question? Okay, final question for me, LOL. Any more thoughts about gear preferences from your competition experiences this year? Yes, I repeat Tamagon and recalls that I found taking off a little weight helped with matches. I don't think I really competed enough to take any serious takeaways away. The tournament that I did play, I got COVID at the start. So I think that I maybe got a little bit too in my head because I was frustrated about my results and looking for answers in places that didn't exist. The other thing, lower this. The other thing is, and then the other tournament that I was going to play, I strained my oblique in a practice match the day before, and so I couldn't serve, so I just didn't play the tournament. So, and next summer when tournaments open up again, I will be playing again, and I'm gonna try to get in better shape so I don't have these concerns going into the match. But yeah, I have been trending lighter. I've been noticing that I'm rewarded generally more from higher swing speeds, and that I can only facilitate those higher swing speeds because I have improved my footwork and my foot speed is higher. And so that is kind of related to this kind of long-standing theory that I've had, which is your swing speed in some ways is tied to your foot speed. If you have really slow feet, you're never going to be able to swing fast consistently. If you have really fast feet, you might as well just also swing fast because you can. There are some exceptions. For example, like Djokovic has some of the best and fastest feet. Although I think a lot of that at the end of the day with his age is now just due to great anticipation. But he has got one of these slower swings on tour. But a good example would be somebody like Sinner or Alcaraz, fastest feet on tour, also the fastest swings on tour. So if you're looking to improve your game and you want to swing faster and hit harder, the thing that's going to make it easier, and this is like obvious and everybody knows this, you ask any coach, is getting your foot speed a little bit faster is going to make it easier for you to time the ball. The faster you swing, the smaller window you have to hit the ball cleanly. So you have to really be in position. And everybody knows this inherently. But it's something that we all need reminders on, I think. Okay. There was another X-Gym class again. Prices you refer to are market prices in Germany. Okay, so that was back to the pricing conversation we had. Yeah, I get so Restring and Toro line prices in Europe, I think, are pretty high. All the niche brands have higher prices in Europe, seemingly, even though Grapple Snake is a German company. I think their retail outlets are a little bit limited. And so that's probably why you're seeing less competitive prices from them compared to more established brands. And yeah, I would still rather use Sync than Alu Power, for example. But if Alu Power was like half the price of Sync, I would pick it. Okay. Patrick Tamadong, you got a 2012 Aero Pro Drive GT and you want to make an Origin clone. The stiffness is the same. Is it doable? It's 371 swing weight, real, unstrung. So the 371, I think, was that Tennis Warehouse found that number? The Origins that I hit were 355 or something. The thing with Babolat's development of the Origin and the Pure Aero Rafa was based on the following. Rafa, unlike many players on tour, changes his racket setup throughout the year. From my understanding, this is primarily he's got a hard court setup and a hard court setup and a clay setup. I'm not sure what he uses on grass. The clay setup was the older setup that is more head light, but he uses the thicker 15L strings. The hard court setup is more head heavy because he's just trying to like 1-2 punch as hard as possible, and he uses the thinner 16 gauge strings. Through the various setups Rafa uses throughout the year, Babolat tried to synthesize those two setups into 2 retail rackets. Rafa's true swing weight is a moving target because he changes throughout the year. So is 371 swing weight real? Yes and no. I'm sure sometimes he is using that, but not all the time. If you just want to make a clone, the way that you can do it based on 2012, the setup he was using in 2012 from the accounts that I have read, which I think have been reported on Tennis Nerd, but follow interview accounts from the period, because he actually said, I think he had 12 grams in the tip at 12 under the bumper and 5 grams in the butt cap. If you want to replicate your Aero Pro drive to getting the dull spec, that should get you most of the way there. Okay. What other questions we got? We have a lot. Poly recommendation for someone new to polys. I would look at Mach 10 in the thinner gauge, as thin as you can go, or head links touch if you're transitioning and you're concerned about comfort. Links touch, we talked about it like earlier, but I recommend it a lot, is an elastomer string with a polyester coating. So you get the soft and easy playability of something like closer to a multi-filament, but you get the snapback and spin more like a poly. What would be a direct competitor to the RF01? The regular version, I guess the Radical Pro is the closest because it's 300 grams and 98, but it is more head heavy. Most of the competitors to the RF01 are going to be slightly heavier in the 305 gram class. Something like the EZO 98 would also be a pretty close competitor, being tight 1619 in the center that opens up to the outside. When am I going to review the Regna 98? Hilarious question. I agree, because I've been putting that off also for a long time because I don't really know what to do. Like, the Regna seems like, I don't know if I can run a title thumbnail combo based solely off the name of the Regna, or if I have to like clickbait it a little bit and go like special graphite, most expensive racket. So I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to deal with this, and I want to do something a little bit more cinematic, which I like doing, but you guys as viewers, some of you really appreciate it, and the ones who do really appreciate it, but generally it leads to lower views. So that's just always a balance that I have to think about. I have more pressing things, like the Regna would be a personal project that I take on for fun, whereas I have more pressing stuff to do now, and I'm actually stressed out about that. Okay, how often am I running into nylon users in the 4.0 to 5.0 range? If anybody asks, if at this point, I run into them with some frequency, maybe 20% of the people who I do consultations with will be using some form of hybrid, and I almost always try to get them off it, because when I tested hybrid setups last year or 2 years ago or something, last year? Yeah, I think it was last year. They just sucked. Like, the power and spin is so much lower when you don't get snapback. Like, it's okay for the first 30 minutes, but especially modern players, like 4.5s, I think almost every 4.5 or like hard hitting 4.0 is going to start to is going to break the casing on a multi within an hour. And once you break the casing on the multi, it starts to fray or you start to notch a sin gut or whatever, then you lose just all the playability. Currently using the Pure Aero Rafa, thinking about switching to the Blackout V2. What would I what should you do it? I mean, if you could try it first, that would be ideal because then you would know if you can. It's an extreme switch. Like the rackets are very different when you actually go to swing them because the balance point and swing weight. So the Slinko's got a low balance point, low swing weight. The Rafa's got a high swing weight, high balance point, but lower weight. The Blackout's better for striking through the ball, for taking shots early. The Aero's better for defense. It would be quite a change. It's hard for me to recommend it. How long did it take to build this thing behind me? It's just an IKEA thing, so not that long. I've actually got most, because I redid it in the last 2 months. So I have footage. I gotta piece together a video on how I built this thing. The thing that took the longest was waiting for the parts to get in because IKEA doesn't always have full parts. What exactly is snapback? Nicholas Abrams asks. All right. Snapback. Okay, so when you go to hit a ball, you're swinging, you hit the ball like this. Agree or disagree? Agree. You hit it like this. The strings that grip the ball are the main strings this way because you're hitting through the ball like that. If you were hitting this way, then the crosses would grip the ball. But in this case, it's mostly the mains, either through a slightly low to, I'm exaggerating, nobody hits straight like this, but either through a slight low to high motion or through some form of ball compression. You're hitting through the ball. The mains are the thing that grab the string. The mains are the things that grab the ball. The ball is a force, is coming in like this. It pushes these main strings down like this. Is this viewable? Like that. And then snap back is when the strings snap back into place as the energy is kind of bouncing back and they kick spin onto the ball. That's what snap back is. Did that make sense? Maybe. Sam wants to know, what is up with the new Wilson frame that is supposed to compete with the Aero 98, the one that everyone is using blacked out? I don't exactly know what this racket is. I do not have one. I do not have a working relationship with Wilson at this time. From what I understand, they have kept that one pretty close to the chest. Mostly only pros are getting it, but sounds like it's going to have some sort of snake-related name, or that's what people are guessing, because 20 years ago, Wilson released an Aero competitor that was called the Cobra. It was when K-Factor was the new tech for them. It appears like the mold might be similar, but I would guess the layup is different. The Cobra also had cutouts in the throat, like holes here. I don't think the new one has that. But I don't know much about it. I'm interested to test it. I hope it doesn't have the weird chalky kind of hitting experience, or spongy hitting experience that I saw with the Wilson Ultra 100 and the Clash. But I also know that these brands are trying to create signature feels with their tech, and so they want things to kind of be the same. Also, in other news, heard that the blade might have a tapered beam for the V10, so thicker tip maybe. That'll be exciting. Okay. Do I think that stringing at high tension can cause strings to notch faster? I think probably it could, but I don't think that it is going to be significant enough for you to feel it. In theory, you could imagine that when you stretch a string, it gets a bit thinner, right? Like when you stretch an elastic band, it gets thinner. So higher tension would stretch it more and make it thinner, which would make it wear faster. That's one potential. That could be one potential cause for wearing faster with higher tension. And then another is maybe more obvious, and that's like more tension, more force in the string bed. It's just harder on the string. But I don't think it's going to be significant for most players. Like if you're a really high level player who's breaking strings all the time, just yeah, I don't think it would be significant enough for you to think about adjusting your tension to improve durability. Does Mach 10 have a similar soft yet crisp feel to TourBite Soft with better tension maintenance? You're looking for something that's not mushy, but also arm friendly. No, Mach 10 is a little bit mushy. It's a little bit more muted. It's quite a bit more muted. If you would like to soften something like TourBite Soft, I would look at putting True Pro Ghost Wire in the crosses. That should soften it up without making it too mushy. Do I think they ditched the shift? That's a good question. I think they probably will ditch the shift. Looking at Wilson's attempts to do power and spin rackets, they just haven't been good. Nothing has really had staying power like the Steam, the Juice. Those two didn't last very long. The Cobra didn't last very long. Probably sucks for them because they clearly put a lot of effort onto the shift, but they couldn't get a pro to really endorse it, which kind of killed it. The intuitive tennis thing didn't work out, which is like another nail in the coffin. Not that as many people are looking to him for racket advice as who are looking to pros, but I find it funny that like every time someone was like thinking about switching to a shift, it didn't really work out. Okay, Alex Correa wants to know what is plush? Luca likes the shift, and that's because he's a bad tennis player. That's what he said. Just FYI. He doesn't even play that well with the shift. He plays better with the Aero 100. That's my take. Wilson didn't work with intuitive tennis on the shift, but he like switched to it and tried like every racket on the market, switched to it, and then like wrecked his arm. So that happened. Yeah. Do I actually have issues with using many different racket setups? Because pros don't like switching at all, and I go through a million different setups. So we're seeing a lot more pros switch around and tinker with rackets lately. So I think it's almost becoming a misnomer that pros don't like to switch. I think it is correct that switching a lot is not the best thing to do, because anytime you switch to a racket setup, you have to adjust your game. And that time that you spend adjusting your game to a new racket setup could obviously be spent working on other things on court. But also, when you adjust to a new racket setup, there's still a lot of things that you can work on. Like you can always work on your footwork. You can always, well, that's the main thing. Like everyone needs to always work on their footwork. You can still make adjustments to your technique. Switching rackets has been beneficial. Trying all these million different setups has been beneficial in edge cases, but in general, I would think it's harmful. But that said, because I make these YouTube videos, it gives me the free time to play a lot more tennis. And so in my specific case, the testing and a lot of the rackets opened up free time for me to play more tennis, which then improved my game. So that's what it is for me. Me really wanting to have success using something like the Yonex Regna, where I couldn't use my old forehand technique. I had to change my forehand technique. That led to what I believe to be an improvement in my personal forehand technique. So there are some cases where trying different rackets has made me a little bit better, but I don't think anyone should really go into racket testing thinking that they're going to suddenly get better. That would be a little bit optimistic, I think. Peter Tran, I'm hearing there is not a new extreme update for 2026. Do I think they are ditching the silo altogether? I have no idea what Head's doing. I doubt they're listening to my advice. Product planning takes place years in advance. My video came out a couple months ago. They would be ditching the extreme, I suspect, because they feel it's not been paying dividends for several years. Maybe that's true, but they would have also kind of be killing it themselves. Like, they didn't get anyone serious to endorse it. Like, Berrettini was the only guy, and then he's out with injuries. I think we kind of know, like, rackets need endorsements to stay popular. All right. Gym class, let's talk more string lingo. I think we need a compendium of terms as they are used too differently or contradict each other. And yeah, okay. So string lingo and general racket description lingo, I think from the people that I watch, I try to be consistent with the language used. Generally, because I grew up mostly watching Tennis Warehouse, a lot of my language comes from Tennis Warehouse. I think when thinking about string descriptors, a good way to understand what they mean is like, okay, how could you be using, what other things would that word be useful to describe something with? So like plush, the word plush. When I think plush, that's usually in the context of like pillows. So something soft, something a little bit lighter feeling, I suppose, not necessarily super solid or the weird thing when it comes to describing words is you just end up using other words to describe those words, and then you can be in this like semantic tailspin. So plush means soft, means more elastic hitting feel. It means something that is comfortable. It means something that you don't get a ton of vibration, more like you're hitting the ball with a pillow. Something that is crisp. I think crisp is one that like rides the edge. Crisp sometimes means stiff. Usually crisp is associated with stiff strings, but for me, crisp is more like a crisp chip, like kind of crunchy. Like you get a bit of like, could be like a metallic feel. You get more higher pitched feedback, hitting sound. Usually those strings that do that are a little bit stiffer. That is true, but that is not always the case. Yeah, I would say crisp is a little bit more loosely used. And when I have discussions with some string producers who use the word crisp, I'm not always in total agreement. But then the other thing is like everybody has different reference points. So like tennis reviewing of testing tennis products is highly subjective, obviously. This is why I am very frustrated with people who are looking for objective reviews, because I don't understand how that's possible. But like if you've only ever hit with a string that I would consider to be very muted and soft, like Toraline Wasabi, almost every string that comes out is going to feel crisp. Like Mach 10 feels very crisp compared to Toraline Wasabi. But if you've only hit with Elu Power, literally nothing is going to feel crisp. Everything is going to feel muted and soggy because you're used to a very connected, high vibration hitting experience. So, yeah. For a while, I tried to use more neutral terms like dwell time, like high dwell time, low dwell time, because it tells you like how long does it feel the ball comes in and out of the strings. But then that's also like severely impacted by weather. Like I personally noticed, like when I hit outside in colder weather, like right now it's like 15 degrees, 10 to 15 degrees in Vancouver, things feel way worse versus when it's warm out, like summer weather, things feel way better. You just get like more elasticity in the string, you get better ball pocketing, you get more ball compression because the ball rubber is a little bit softer. Your whole body feels looser and softer, so you can swing more naturally. Pi Death wants to know, what do I know about the new V course? Literally nothing. Yonex keeps things so under wrap now. Have I added silicone to the handles of any of my racks to dampen vibrations? No, I have not. I have hit some rackets with silicone, like the Aero 98 with silicone, and I don't think it really dampens vibrations. I think it's more the extra mass you add dampens vibrations, nothing inherent with the silicone itself. What would be a similar but more maneuverable version of the 100 square inch gravity tour version 1? Whis wants to know. Percept 100D. That's like the obvious choice, I think, right? Same weight, much lower swing weight, tight string pattern, 100 square inch. You're going to get a slightly thicker beam with the percepts, will be more forgiving. Jesse Wang wants to know, do I have more content with MGRI in the works? No. Why don't I? I have other stuff going on. Simon and I have also discussed about trying to produce content that is more accessible to newer players. One of the reasons for that is, so Trey and Kyle from Winners Only came to town and we did a collab in the summer. That their Vancouver court tour video has led to me being recognized significantly more than usual around town and then I asked why, and it's like, they saw me in that video. So I'm finding that Vancouver specifically, but also there's clearly a lot of demand by less dorky people than me and most of the people watching this to get into more accessible tennis content. And so we want to make things a little bit more fun. All right, Luke is texting me. I must have offended him in some way. And he's gonna get his texts read live. Luca says, I cannot believe you just said the 100D is more maneuverable than the G Tour. Luca, we're talking about the 100 square inch gravity tour, not the new 98 square inch gravity tour. You agree that your old first gen gravity tour is a slow swinging log. Did he reply? Oh, he says he's aware. Well, the gravity tour, most of them are coming at like 330 swing weights. The Percept 100D is coming at like 320 swing weights. Generally, lower swing weights people find them to be more maneuverable. That's my rebuttal. Okay, did I ever play with the ProStaff V13? And what did I think? Okay, Luca says his Gravity Pros were 324 swing weight, so that's why they swing more maneuverable than the 100D he hit. Anyway, we're ignoring him for now. Did I ever play with the ProStaff V14? Christopher Martinez wants to know. Yeah, I did. I reviewed it when I worked at Courtside Sports, but at the time that I did the reviews for Courtside Sports, especially towards the end, I was not working in the store and I did not string rackets for my reviews. Obviously, I do that now. So I would just test it with whatever it was. I didn't request string changes because I was pretty sure they would be declined. The manager at the time had it strung with a hybrid of Hawk Touch and Velocity MLT because that is the setup that he used in that racket because that was his racket. And so my remembering on how that racket feels is that it's lame because I hit it with a hybrid. But I imagine it's good. Um, any recommendations for a Pure Strike 98? And you're absolutely eating up strings. Pretty hard to know if you don't tell me what you're already using, but the rule of thumb is thicker, stiffer strings wear less. Aaron, just got the Rafa, put some K-pop spin on your first string job. From my experience, the best setup for the Rafas in warm weather is Otoro Tour with restring sync in the crosses because I like a crisper, firmer hitting feel. Crisp, in this case, referring to a slightly higher pitched, more halloo powery type experience. But when it's cold out, that's too firm and I don't get enough ball pocketing and power. So I would just use normal Otoro with sync in the crosses, green version. Transfer at Babylon wants to know, are vocals worth the money or are the rackets stuck in the past? I haven't hit a vocal for like over 5 years. When I did hit them, I thought they were pretty underwhelming and lame. Would I review them now? I would not review them. I would say you can send it to me, and if I think it's interesting enough to review, then we could review them. But they basically have no significant presence in Canada. Dealing with a lot of the Canadian distributors has been a mixed bag. Some of them really have no money, so they can't support me in ways that global ones do. And basically, I'm not going to go after a vocal to try it. If they want it to be covered on the channel, they can send me the racket, and if it's interesting enough, it will be reviewed. For reference, even if somebody wanted me to review a racket and tried to pay me for the time, that would not happen. I do not do paid reviews. Even though usually when they do that, the offer comes from a place of respect because they know it takes a lot of time to produce these reviews. They're not necessarily, in my experience, trying to pay for a positive review. I just don't want that to be a factor. Good night, ex-gym class. My throat's starting to get tired, so I'm also going to go after I answer Peter's last member question. Oh, it's not really a question. Want to say thank you for the community you and my partners have created for the modern rec player. Even if you don't agree with me all the time, I'm your favorite channel. Thank you very much. That means a lot to me. I don't think you should agree with me all the time. I do generally try to be thoughtful with the things that I say, but there's no way that you could agree with me all the time because you and I haven't had the same experiences. And so it would be weird if we agreed with literally everything. You might agree with a lot of the things that I say, but you might not agree with everything. And I think that's good. I think if you just blindly agree with people, you run into bad situations. And there's a great example of that very close to me, which I'm just going to let you fill in the blanks. I'm going to go.